are searching for a convicted felon whose gun accidentally discharged at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport yesterday. It triggered panic and a temporary ground stop at one of the nation's busiest airports. Authorities say the man fled after a firearm he pulled from his bag during a security check accidentally went off. President Biden's chief medical advisor and infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says scientists don't yet know whether periodic COVID-19 booster shots will be needed in the future.
We can't predict if we may need more later on, but for now, you get very good protection when you get that boost.
Fauci tells ABC's This Week researchers are tracking people who get boosters to determine their durability. Meanwhile, demonstrators in several European cities are protesting COVID-19 restrictions. They turned violent in the Netherlands for a second night last night, and thousands are in the streets of Brussels today. Atlanta-based Delta Airlines says it expects flights to bounce back to near pre-pandemic levels over the Thanksgiving travel period. From member station WABE, Lily Oppenheimer reports airports are bracing for the holiday rush.
This time last year, many Americans were driving to see their loved ones. Now Delta officials expect more than 5 million people on board, with air travel numbers bouncing back and restrictions lifting, including the recent opening of the U.S. borders to fully vaccinated international travelers. Delta's chief health officer, Dr. Henry Ting, says the federal TSA mask mandate is still in place and is encouraging passengers to get a negative COVID test and wash their hands as much as they can while they fly. That's especially true for the more than 2 million people projected to pass through Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International, known as America's busiest airport. For NPR News, I'm Lily Oppenheimer in Atlanta.
Canadian officials in British Columbia confirm 4 bodies have now been found after devastating floods triggered a landslide there last week. Dan Carpenshuck reports.
The body of a woman was located on Monday, the day of the mudslide, near Lillooet. That slide sent trees, mud, and debris spilling across the highway and blocked the last remaining route from the lower mainland to the rest of the province. Since then, the bodies of 3 men have also been found. None of the victims' names have been released. The search for a 5th person was suspended on Friday and will resume when the weather improves. The highway remains closed, and officials say they have no indication when it might reopen. Meanwhile, crews in Abbotsford say they're making progress to close a 300-foot gap in a nearby dike caused by the flooding. There are about 120 Canadian military personnel helping to close that dike. For NPR News, I'm Dan Carpenshuck in Toronto.
This is NPR.
For Democrats, there is some momentum after so many months of infighting on Capitol Hill. The infrastructure bill is now law, and the ambitious social spending bill, known as Build Back Better, is in the hands of the Senate. There's also some positive news about the economy after weeks of rising consumer prices. Joining me now is NPR national political correspondent Mara Eliason. Good morning, Mara.
Good morning, Layla.
So let's start with that good news. Revised job numbers for the summer tell a very different story than we originally heard, right?
That's right. There was a big underestimation of the number of jobs that were created over the summer, actually 626,000 jobs. And this kind of revision is pretty normal. It's part of the Bureau of Labor Statistics work. They go back over their numbers and they adjust them if they were incomplete. But it was a surprise, and if anyone was paying attention, it really changes the narrative of those, quote, disappointing monthly reports. And that narrative certainly contributed to Biden's sagging approval ratings.
So what does that mean for the president's economic agenda, though, if anything? Concern about inflation and an overheated economy are part of the argument against the Build Back Better package. Another part is the idea that the economy is recovering fine without another round of legislation. How are Democrats going to make their case for this package?
Well, first of all, they're saying the legislation is not stimulus. It's not meant to boost the economy. It's meant to spend money on infrastructure and other things over many, many years. But this was the week that Democrats started in earnest to message these bills. You know, up until now, polls have shown that when people are informed about individual pieces of the bill, help to pay for child care, elder care, rebuilding bridges, universal broadband, they like those things. But polls also show Americans didn't really understand what was in these bills at all. So the president held a big signing ceremony. for the infrastructure bill. He went to New Hampshire to look at a bridge. He went to Detroit to look at electric vehicles. House Democrats are going back to their districts to talk about what else is in the bill. This is the Democrats' theory of the case. They believe that if they deliver with aid for people to help people do ordinary things like pay for child care, pay for elder care, and they communicate that to people that they have delivered, voters will reward them.
And Republicans, how are they arguing against this bill?
Well, they're saying it's just too big, too expensive. What's really interesting about the Republican arguments is they're really not arguing against specific things in the bill. They're not saying, no, I don't think your grandma should get help from Medicare to pay for hearing aids. And the other thing that Republicans are doing that is really galling to Democrats is that some Republicans who voted no on the infrastructure bill are going back to their districts and saying, look, we're getting money to fix this road or repair this bridge or expand broadband, even though they voted against it. And Democrats say that's why they need to not only